hurting cats,
villains, hurting
and volume,
cats.
hurting
Yeah.
villains, hurting cats. And
Puss in
here,
Boots.
Puss in Boots. It's the Spoiler Room, third time's a charm episode. Yes, it's our special series that we're doing this year where we're looking at the third film in a movie franchise. I know it's a little odd, but that's the way we are here at Special Mark Productions and the Spoiler Room. And tonight, down in the Spoiler Room, sitting with me to discuss this animated film are a couple of great crew members. First off, the diva of the Spoiler Room, we've got Dawn. Hello, Dawn.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Hope you're ready to talk some animation here. And
I hope so too.
and next to Dawn is the bowtie man himself. It is Mr. Paul Salzer. Hello, Paul.
Hello, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing well. Hope you're feeling at least a little bit better.
I've got a little bit of a frog in my throat, but other than that, pretty good.
Well, maybe that frog will die during our show, just like you like my little segue there? Just like the new father-in-law of Shrek, King Harold in Shrek the Third. King Harold falls ill, and Shrek is looked to as being the heir for the land of far, far and away. Not one to give up his beloved swamp, Shrek recruits his friend Donkey and Puss in Boots to install the rebellious Artie as the new king. Princess Fiona, however, rallies a band of royal girlfriends to fend off a coup d'etat by the jilted Prince Charming. Yes, this is the third film. They got all the original cast back, added more characters to the Shrek universe. And oh wow. Okay, so let's get into this real quick. First off, Paul, we'll start with you. Your impression when you saw Shrek the Third.
It was different than the first in the series.
Mhm.
I think tonally, especially, it just felt like a different type of film. It's like they were trying to. They still had some of the similar themes from the original movies. You know how they took certain perceptions and turned it upside down. But I think for the most part, that whole focus on the fatherhood thing really made it an entirely different story for me. And I'm kind of on the fence right now on whether or not I liked it or not liked it. So.
Well, again, it's a third one in a franchise, and if sequels are tough, the third film's even tougher to try to sell, usually. Dawn, how about you? Now, you just recently watched this, correct?
I did. I watched it last night, and I messaged you and said, I thought I had seen it, but apparently I hadn't seen it. But as the movie went on, I realized that I definitely did remember parts of it, and it was just unfortunately not that memorable. Part of the problem is, as Paul said, it was so tonally different from the previous two movies, and in a way that I really noticed the focus being taken away from the first movie. Was really about perception,
Right.
about judging people, about challenging concepts of beauty and concepts of good and bad. An ogre can be good and awesome and beautiful. You don't have to be blonde and slender and pretty to be, well, the traditional concept of pretty to be beautiful. And in this one, in Shrek the Third, we're going back to, the emphasis is on the king. The king is dying, so Shrek is the new king, but he doesn't want to be. He wants to be an ogre. But the themes are no longer challenging. They're just your basic fairy tale crap.
This one, I watched these again. Well, first Shrek I really loved. I really enjoyed Shrek, and I watched that many times, and we watched it with my kids when they were younger because they were growing up young, and that was one of those movies where and if you watched it repeatedly, it didn't get too tiresome. because it was that entertaining. And the second one was entertaining. I rewatched that again before watching this one. And watching this one, it is a different film. It's got a different feel completely to it. And it is cool that they got the original cast back. I mean, Mike Myers doing Shrek, Eddie Murphy, Donkey, Fiona is Cameron Diaz, Antonio Banderas, who surprised us in the second one with as Puss in Boots, and who eventually got his own spin-off, I think, after this one or after number 4. Everybody forgets that Antonio Banderas has a really a good funny bone in him. And actually, I think he was one of the better characters in this film. And then you get a couple of Monty Python characters in here doing voices. John Cleese did the voice of the king, while Eric Idle did the voice of Merlin, which, if you're going to do a story about Artie, a.k.a. King Arthur, you got to have Merlin, right? Only the Merlin in here is quite different. Shrek tracks Artie down to his high school, and we'll get to Merlin in a minute. But first, let's talk about the setup, because they did it in Far, Far Away, where it was kind of Hollywood, and then they moved to medieval high school. And Dawn, did that work for you? How'd you feel about the high school setup with it? Did that really feel forced compared to how they did?
It really did. Yeah, it really did. It was, I mean, it was forced. I think it was intended to be forced and awkward because you were supposed to feel that. I just don't think it worked.
Yeah.
I mean, I know, I get that it was intentional. It was supposed to evoke that awkward feeling. It just didn't work.
Yeah, I wasn't feeling it either. I was hoping, I think it would have worked more had they maybe went a college angle with it, but doing it high school seemed to be just a little too, I don't know what it is. Yeah, it just forced. Paul, what about you with Worcester High School?
I think I think it did need to be in the high school level instead of college, because I think for most of us, college was a great time to explore and become who you are. High school, not so much so. It was all about social groups, and you got all the like, oh my God, like, ew, that sort of type. And I think the high school setting for me was perfectly fine. But like Dawn said, it was kind of overdone. And the surprise factor that they were trying to do, where they had already introduced but not really introduced, you knew right away, because it was like from the first 2 movies, you knew that that it's not going to be the one that you think it is. It's going to be the guy that totally got dissed, and sure enough, it was him. So it kind of is like, oh yeah, the movie's starting to get familiar to me, and I think that's why the whole scene of the high school didn't play out as well as they had wanted to.
Well, the thing is, what they were going for, and we've seen it, especially everybody here, you've seen that same high school story a lot. Growing up in the 80s to the 90s, that high school story was beating a dead horse. So seeing it again, it was just like, for me, compared to kind of the more go ahead.
And they all built that city on rock and roll.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so maybe they were trying to go back to the 80s high school feel for it, because they're always trying to play off the retro feel. I guess for me, it didn't just quite work, maybe because we've seen it so much that I was hoping for something a little fresh take, but instead, this time around, they actually went with the basic tropes of Artie being the social outcast in that. Which leads us, of course, to Merlin, as I mentioned earlier, voiced by Eric Idle. And Merlin, though, he's not your standard wizard, Mr. New Age man here. Paul, yeah, how'd you feel they handled Merlin?
Oh, I enjoy Eric Idle, and so having him be the voice of Merlin, this all-powerful wizard thing, and to find out the reason why he is in the situation he is because, he just kind of flaked out and had a nervous wreck, that I could totally relate to. Not that I would have a nervous breakdown and stuff. But yeah, I totally loved his character, and I loved how he was even nervous about helping them because he was like, that type of the thing, and I just enjoyed that reluctancy to help, and it actually took Artie's kind of speech to get him to keep moving, and I enjoyed that. It also made Artie seem like, oh yeah, he does have that leadership quality that he's going to need if he's going to be king. So I thought that scene with him and Merlin was just very, very necessary in the film. So I was glad they had it.
Yeah, I was glad. I mean, Merlin was kind of a refreshing, cool character, with Artie being that cliche high school student, and the kind of more cliche high school setting. Merlin's their take on Merlin was a lot fresher, and I liked that quite a bit. How about you, Don, with Merlin?
I was very torn on Merlin. There were aspects that I definitely liked. I mean, I just kept giggling at the challenge, the apparent problem he had with wearing pants or anything that covered him below mid-thigh. That just had me giggling. Sue me.
A lot of characters in this film have that problem, though.
Yeah, they really don't like pants.
No.
The problem I had, as much as I did like the scenes that Paul had mentioned, was even the first time seeing it, I got this Miracle Max vibe.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, God, is it incidental? Is it on purpose? I'm really having a Miracle Max vibe here. So I'm really torn on that.
Yeah.
And even though Merlin was extremely entertaining, and I too am a fan of Eric Idle, because who isn't?
Who is it? Though, odd little side note trivia, he almost sued the makers of Shrek the Third.
Whoa.
Because in the very beginning, we have Prince Charming, who we've seen has been whittled down to doing stage plays at the villain bar, the bar where all the villains hang out, which we saw in number 2. He's doing stage plays there to reenact his supposed rescue of Fiona, which is all bubkiss. But they have a guy off stage using coconuts for the sound of the horse.
Oh, right.
And they did not.
Which I find entertaining. Because they've been using that particular technique since way before the Holy Grail.
Well, yeah, and that's why the trivia, it was in the wiki in that, so how true this could be, I'm not sure, but apparently there were talks by Eric Idle that he may actually, they had thought about possibly suing him for infringement because they didn't ask to use that shtick, and that was out of Monty Python.
Except it really wasn't.
No, it wasn't. You're right. I mean, that's your point. Yeah, it wasn't actually out of Monty Python. But I guess it would be irony. I'm not very good with vocabulary, but that Eric Idle, a Monty Python guy who's in the movie, would think of suing the movie for using one of his shticks.
Yep.
It's just like, oh, come on, guys, really?
It would be a great way to get out of that whole suing thing. It's like, hey, wouldn't you like a part in the film?
Yeah, kidding, right?
That could be. They tried. That was the angle they were trying to go for. I'm not sure. But meanwhile, while Shrek is out and about and he's venturing out there to find Artie to bring him back, there's trouble at the castle. Just before Shrek left, he was notified he was going to be a dad. So Fiona's pregnant, and we get to meet the princesses, or the princi, or sorry, I couldn't resist. I apologize. But
I want a shirt with that on it.
The princi.
The princi.
So like every Shrek movie, we do get introduced to newer characters because they're trying to keep things fresh. And in here, while they were hinted at in the second one, we get to meet the other princesses of the kingdom, namely Rapunzel, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty and Snow White. Dawn, how'd you feel? What did you like these characters? Was it fun seeing them on screen and portrayed all together in the same world?
I didn't expect to, but I actually did.
Mm-hmm. And what did you like? Did you like how their characters were written with their their characteristics, playing off of what the way they were written in their fairy tales, but not quite?
Yeah, they did just enough of a slant to keep it fresh, and to mock themselves. And again, I wasn't expecting to like them. I didn't anticipate liking them at all, and I really was entertained, especially at the big storming the castle scene.
Oh, because Prince Charming has used the villains at this point to take over the castle, and he locks up all the princesses in prison, and he has this big plan to big a huge stage play and actually kill the real Shrek on stage. And so, and the princesses escape with the help of the queen, who is voiced by Julie Andrews, and the queen uses her head to bust out of jail.
They really came up with some interesting uses, with some interesting things. I mean, Snow White using her voice to sing Barracuda.
Oh my God.
To get the animals to attack, using narcolepsy as a war tool.
I think it's the first time ever narcolepsy was actually used as a proper tool. But it worked well. I liked the storming the castle bit with the princesses and them, kind of not waiting for the princes to save them. I thought that was a nice angle, and that section in there felt kind of more towards like the original tone, didn't it, Paul?
Yes, definitely. The storming of the castle, having the princesses, prince. Now you got me all wondering. It's princesses, I think.
Yes, princesses.
Having them rescue themselves was definitely something I enjoyed. I didn't enjoy their characters at the beginning because I thought they were too mocking.
Mm-hmm.
I am kind of a softy, and I'm going to sound misogynistic about this, but I enjoy the fairy tale type of the thing, having the great hero and the saving somebody princess wise, or I enjoy those type of stories. And so when I was first introduced to these characters that were kind of poo-pooing on that whole vision, I was kind of upset until the whole, hey, we're going to rescue ourselves scene. And that to me changed it for me. It was like, if they didn't do that, I would have not liked these characters. But the whole aspect of we're going to free ourselves, and having the queen literally use her head to get out of a situation was perfect. I was like, I get it now. I know what you're trying to do. And then I think what really like cemented it for me was having I think it's the Cinderella character doing the immigrant song. And
that's Snow White.
Was it Snow White that was doing that? Okay. And having that was just amazingly that scene was fantastic, and just it made my heart start to thump. And so from that point on, it was like, okay, I'm gonna like these characters now. I didn't at first.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, I loved how I really enjoyed when they took the angle and played it off of, you're gonna wait for a prince to come around and save you. No, we're saving ourselves. And then they used their abilities, and that felt like the spirit of the first two, especially the first one, where it turned the expectations on its head as far as taking these characters and putting them in a different situation than you're expecting them to see them in, and be successful in it. And yet also have it make sense. I mean, the narcolepsy part was great because she just passed out in front of the guards to trip them. And I'm just like, okay, so that's what she's doing. So I love that whole, and even the fact that one of them ends up betraying the group as well, I thought was an interesting twist.
I didn't like that. I didn't like that at all.
You didn't like Rapunzel?
No.
What didn't you like about that?
because again, it comes back from my whole. I have this special place where these characters of my past. I believe that they fit a certain mold, and I know I shouldn't do that. It's a modern world. People change, but I thought, and I kept thinking about Tangled, and it's like this is not the same Rapunzel. Why are you doing this? It's like why? And
There's
it
Oh,
nothing
hurt
wrong
me.
with being a traditionalist and liking your traditional stories.
Well, thank you. I feel
Absolutely
better
nothing
now.
wrong with
Okay,
nothing
but
wrong with that. That you're a
yeah,
fairy tale snob. We got it. That's fine.
yeah. Well, I was hoping that she would redeem herself or something. Just come on, just turn it around, make it. But no, they stuck to their guns. Darn them all.
Darn them all.
Yeah.
But I like I like that though, that it was turned around, because you know you,
Wouldn't
you're
expect
sitting there, you're going, hopefully, it's like they've got a half hour yet to this film and they're already storming the castle. What the heck? uh, but of course they're thwarted because they're betrayed, and Merlin gets Shrek and them back, and we do have the sidekicks still, with Donkey, who is still, I think, tolerable in this. Eddie Murphy is funny as Donkey. He really gets in this role, and Puss in Boots, and they end up switching places, which I thought was kind of humorous in that. And at least they didn't run with that shtick too long, I don't think. Which is interesting, because for the way this film plays out, this feels a lot straighter than the other two films. Would you say, Don, that this film, as far as, because the other one felt like, joke kind of quick quips and everything and little visuals, and this one, I don't know, it not only tone, but didn't just feel more like a little bit more of a straight fairy tale story, rather than a kind of Perry haha laugh? Or am I off? It just didn't feel quite like
I,
over comical like the other
maybe,
ones.
but but I think a lot of the jokes simply didn't work.
Oh, maybe
Like
that
there was
is.
that whole there was that whole shtick when Shrek was following Artie and he was trying to talk, modern slang or modern-ish
Oh yes.
slang, and he was doing it badly, and he was doing the nuh-uh,
Uh-huh.
whatever the hell else he was saying. And I'm too Midwestern to
Yeah.
do street talk. But he was doing that whole shtick, and I'm just like, that's not even funny. What the heck?
Mm-hmm.
But I think that some of the jokes simply just weren't funny. A little bit too nichey, a little bit too contemporary.
A lot more pop culture for the time
Yeah.
than the previous two, I would say. And there was that reference, but not nearly. They kept it more fairy tale reference, it felt like, in the first two. Maybe I'm just, off on that. Paul, how about you with some of the jokes in that? Did this just feel not quite as humorous as the previous two?
I agree that it wasn't as humorous, and I think it might have been kind of their way of showing that Shrek has matured, and
Mm-hmm.
so I think the jokes were meant to be, well, they're a little bit not so rapidly delivered, and I think that whole scene of him throwing out the contemporary slang was just to show, hey, this guy who's normally really funny with his slang, and he even proves it later on in the film that he's quite funny at his zings. He just couldn't do it because it was like he was trying to be so hard to be this modern, young, hip type kid,
Mm-hmm.
but he's actually a much older guy, and you know how older people like myself, if I tried to be hip, I just come off as being disingenuous. You know,
Well,
horrible.
yeah, I think it was just the way it was written, though, and what you expect from Shrek. It didn't land right as maybe it should have. Now, granted, the film was still a success and all, but for me, out comparing it to the other two, by now, it's just like that. Even for being forced, it felt a lot of place. Just like the other thing, which I like the song, I get the scene, but did anyone else feel just a little bit awkward that they were singing "Live and Let Die" for the funeral procession of the frog. I'm like, out of all the songs that have the word "die" in it,
Or out of anything that could be used as a funeral song.
Yeah, that'd be more humorous. They picked that, and I'm like, this is maybe a joke that's looked good on paper. Dawn, what about that scene too? That joke, that was another one I think that just was really off the mark.
I didn't get that, as a matter of fact, that kind of set a tone that I noticed throughout the entire movie. The music wasn't quite as on.
Mm-hmm.
There was just something slightly not as right about the music as there had been in the previous two movies. The other two movies were like, oh, spot on. The music was right. They had no problem getting the exact perfect song for the exact perfect scene. And this one is like, well, okay. But throughout the whole movie, it was that way.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. There was a few of those jokes where I knew they were supposed to be jokes, but I was like, why'd they go that angle? How about you, Paul, with "Live and Let Die" song? Did that just feel off?
I was looking at it as being a message rather than trying to be funny. I thought it was just sort of the kind of the storytellers telling Shrek that he's got to move on and accept the death and you know.
Right, but
that's why I didn't even take it to be as it was meant to be funny either. So I guess that's why I didn't see it as being out of place.
But for me, though, go ahead, Don.
But even then, it's not Shrek's dad. It's Fiona's dad, and that really pulls the focus away from. So that pulls back to what I was saying at when we started the chat. Was this movie was very much about focusing on the king and focusing about how Shrek is now the king, but it should have been Fiona as the bloodline, as the daughter. Why are we focusing on Shrek's loss? Fiona just lost her dad.
Yeah.
And she's technically the heir.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. That really bothered me.
Yeah, that didn't quite follow with me either. I'm like, she's technically would be the heir. I mean, he would be king, but she'd actually be the ruler. It was like not set up quite right, with the way they set it up in the film. And for me, if you're taking that serious point, and I see your points, Paul, on that, and I can see it if you approach it like that, but with the way it's directed and kind of handled with the frogs singing it, I think if they didn't have the frogs singing it, I would have probably got more of the angle that you got out of it, Paul. For me, I didn't get that because they had the frogs singing it, and I'm like, oh, it's funny, the frogs are singing the song, and then you're like, but the song they're singing, what? But no, if you approach it that way with a little bit more of the serious depth with that, then I can see where that might fit a little bit more. I just thought that maybe they could pick different song for that, because the just like the rest of the songs, unlike the other two, I agree with Dawn, they didn't quite have that impact outside of the immigrant song with Snow White, which was very fitting,
and Barracuda
that section again, that was like my favorite section of this film. Really.
About that song, I think it would have been better if they would have played like "It's So Hard to Say Goodbye to Yesterday" by Boyz II Men. I think that would have been a better choice of song to play at that point.
Yeah, especially for what they were going for in general in the setting and the tone of the film and what they're going for. Then that would have worked a lot better, I think, on it. But again, the people directing this were not involved in the first two as well. So
that makes sense then.
The two people listed for directing this, Raman Hui and who's the other one? Chris Miller. This is the first Shrek film they've directed, so you've got a different crew behind the scenes, basically.
Which may explain why they didn't have quite the dynamic with the music, because as different directors, they may have had a harder time getting the music they actually wanted.
Well, and in general, with doing a third film in an animated franchise, getting that sold had to be tough. You know, even though it made lots of money. I mean, the first one though had a budget of 60 million, and it made 484 million.
Yeah.
So they're right there. Oh, okay, we're gonna make a sequel. Why would you make a third one? Well, the second film went on to make $919 million and a budget of 50 million. So you're like, okay, we're gonna do a third one. But whether or not they had enough there. Now, I like the fact that we get to see what happened to Prince Charming after the second one. And I dug the villains. I actually kind of wanted to see more of the villains besides just Charming. Paul, how'd you feel about the villains in this? And we have our fairy tale villains in this. How'd you feel about them?
I felt that they were going to do a lot more with it, especially when they showed the Cyclops with his daughter, and I thought, oh, they're gonna show us, they're gonna do what they promised us at the beginning of the film, which was they're going to show the other side of the story, the villain side of the story, and it just didn't pan out. As they didn't do it enough for me, and I wish they would have, but instead they were focused more on the fatherhood story, and that was okay. I dug that, but I think it would have been more interesting to see that, the villain side of the story, and then having kind of like villains' rights, and just have more that type of story. It would have been interesting. It would have changed the tone of the film, I think, too.
And they dabble at that idea of the villains, and you even get a whole musical number about, hey, we need our side of the story, that big Prince Charming speech, and we get bits and pieces near the end. But yeah, that would have kept things, I think, even more interesting. Would you think, Don, if they maybe would have, with the third film, we've explored the hero angle kind of enough, and I know they were going for the parent thing, but maybe playing off of the villains a little more, or getting at least to see a little bit more besides them fighting and being Prince Charming's bitch, basically.
I think it would have been a much better movie if they would have focused on the perspective from the villains and canned the fatherhood aspect for the next movie. I don't think they went far enough with either of those aspects. And I understand that Shrek as an ogre being the traditional villain is a good thing as far as being the setup for installing Artie as the king, because he's the traditional good king, King Arthur. But exploring how the other villains would have definitely made a more solid story. Yeah. I wasn't impressed with the fatherhood storyline at all.
Well, no, I mean, I could see if, like you said, it would be fitting for the fourth one, because the fourth one we get the babies in that, and him dealing with fatherhood there would have made almost more sense than, the expecting father. It almost felt like they were trying to do a little too much in this one, to touch on too many things, which the other ones, the focus, it seemed to be a lot more focused in the first two films. Would you say that, Paul, that the first two films were a bit more focused maybe on what they were trying to deliver as far as message and everything? Even down to the jokes were kind of focused on, we're all plot driven.
Yes, I agree. And I think that's probably the curse of the third movie in a series, is because they always have to try to top the previous one, and the previous one had to top the original. So by the time the third one comes around, it's like we have to make it larger than life, and we have to cover all these things. And sometimes, a lot too much or a lot is not a good thing. Sometimes it's better to keep it focused, keep it small, keep it like the second one, and things would be better.
Yeah, because the second one, it introduced the new characters, but it introduced them gradually, and not all those characters felt like they were trying to be main ones. Where in this one, some of these characters get enough screen time going, oh, we're going to see more of them, and then you don't at all.
Yes.
you know, I mean, that's the way I kind of felt with that. With this, I don't mind them bringing new characters in and trying to keep it fresh. Like it's the princesses were enough, but then we get Artie and Merlin, and then we get these villain characters, and it's just like, holy crap, I would have liked to see them doing. You got Ian McShane doing the voice of Captain Hook. I kind of liked that. His character. I was like, oh, let's take a look at him a little more, but we don't. And
not just him, but you have another wicked stepsister.
Yep.
So now you have the dynamic between those two. You have the one scene where Captain Hook, when they attack the castle, Captain Hook is mistaking a mother and her child as Peter Pan and Wendy. I mean, you have all these great beginnings and no follow through.
Yeah, it's like ideas, and then we're just going to keep going, and then we go back to Artie and Shrek sitting on a log discussing fatherhood or whatever, which it's a touching moment, but again, it goes along with what we've said before, is that the tone of this film really is different than the other ones. And that's the thing, is this is not necessarily a bad film. I enjoyed it, but really compared to the other two, I didn't enjoy this one as much, I think, because of those aspects. The animation was fine, character development was fine in it. How did you think they handled the other existing characters? Do you think they just brought them in enough to remind you, Don, of them, but not, overuse them because we've seen them already? The Pinocchio and the pigs and the cross-dressing wolf, and
pretty much they were just there so you didn't forget about them.
Yeah, and I think they used them enough. I kind of dug the baby shower scene, the fact that the wolf and the dragon was there. We get to see the dragon again, who actually was missing in number 2, if I remember correctly, wasn't he, Paul?
Until the very end.
Or yeah, till the very end. You get her, and you could even play with, you got Donkey with the baby dragons, and we don't get much with that, do we, Paul?
No, we really don't. I mean, they did the one, I think that it was just like that. It was all a big setup for the joke where when they meet the kids, they free the kids, and they go to the wrong dad because they're body swapped. I think that whole scene earlier in the film was just to set up that one joke, and it felt awkward. It really did.
Well, it did, and there were moments where you had Donkey talking a bit about fatherhood, but he doesn't add too much because, and you think there'd been an opportunity for them to do that because apparently he's been around it enough.
He should have been the expert. He should have been able to get the guy that helps him out.
He should have been giving more advice than what he was.
Right.
It played more of a part, and I think as funny as Eddie Murphy is, they had an opportunity here to really have the roles reversed from the first film to where, here we have the quote unquote sidekick, if you will, for lack of a better term, that Donkey is, his buddy, being able to return the favor and return something back to Shrek, and be the more knowledgeable one than they were in the first film. Don, did you feel that way, where they may have missed an opportunity with Donkey to kind of grow his character more?
Definitely, because Parenthood has layers like a parfait.
Yes. Nice. It does have layers like a parfait, and so I think they missed out a little bit
Squishy,
there.
poopy layers.
Poopy layers, yes. Yeah, the poopy layers, which you get a nightmare in here with Shrek having a nightmare about having babies, which that part was kind of fitting. I kind of like that, and
But
the
the
ogre
dream never
babies.
ended. It just kept going and going and going.
It did go
Oh,
a little long though. It's like we got the idea. Let's move on. Um,
thank
which I'm not sure if they forgot maybe their target audience with this, or they were hoping their audience was old enough to follow along. Do you think maybe that was it? Was that
yes.
they were
It's
trying to make a little more mature Shrek?
Yes, I definitely believe that. Just like how Harry Potter, I loved the first things of Harry Potter, and as he grew and fit the audience that was following him, I liked it less and less because and same with this film. I think they're trying to because their audience is getting older along with Shrek, and that's why I believe that they were trying to make it the jokes a lot more older and so forth. I think that that's exactly what they were trying to do.
Would you say, Don, they're trying to make the more mature one? Because with this being the third in the franchise, since the first one came out, I think in 2001 or two, their audience is growing older. 2001. You think they were just trying to make an older Shrek, thinking the audience that's grown up with these wanted an older Shrek?
I definitely think it's possible, but I think they missed the mark, and I think they missed the mark and kind of skipped over going from the kids. I think they even skipped over going from the kids to the parents and jumped right to the grandparents, because some of the movies that were referenced in these scenes were things like Rosemary's Baby, The
Mm.
Exorcist, Raising Arizona. Those are
Oh,
not, I mean, those are a little older. Those are definitely targeted for an older audience, but a little too old to be the kids.
right. Well, even the Monty Python coconut shell reference,
Yeah, that's,
that's
I mean, yeah, young parents, they're not going to get that because they're too young.
or even the well, they might get it because I think Glee was out around this time. Uh, the picture of the fairy god, no, Glee didn't come out for 2 years, so
Mhm.
it had "Don't Stop Believing." And because she's saying it's a direct reference to, you know, the song that later would become really popular thanks to Glee.
Mhm.
But you have that in there that is for adults, okay, but the whole film didn't seem to it seemed to really be a little bit more trying to be more heady. I don't know what it was supposed to be, because the first two films had a better balance, I think, of everything in here. And yeah, and I think we'll wrap it up here soon. There's not a whole lot more to talk about an animated film on this, outside of maybe the voice acting with this. But I was wondering if you guys, either one of you, have a question or a topic that you want to talk that we didn't touch on already. Dawn, did you have one?
No, we already talked. We already touched on most everything.
Oh, okay. And Paul, how about you? Is there anything we may not have touched, or something else with this being the third installment you wanted to talk about?
I think we really did cover it. It was all most of my questions were related to the whole fatherhood theme. I think we
Right.
did cover that enough, so I think we did a good job with that.
Okay. Just checking on that. It's going to be a shorter episode tonight, but as I'm doing with all the Third Times a Charms episodes, we're going to do a little thing where we're going to go down our panel quick and ask them if third time is a charm, or if maybe they should have stopped at two. Uh, and so folks can give their final thought with this film. So, Dawn, we're going to start with you. Is third time a charm? Yes or no, and why?
Um, God, no, not necessarily. To be fair, I have not seen Shrek Forever After or anything that came after it yet. My kids were uh, my kids were too old. They were not interested in these by the time these came out. I think there are definitely good things about this film. But overall, it was definitely not and did not come close to being as strong as the first two. Worth seeing, sure. But no, not the charm.
Sure. And Paul, how about you? Is third time a charm with Shrek the Third?
Specifically this film, no, it was not the charm. I think if they would have tweaked a few things and maybe followed some of the suggestions that we might have made, I think it would have made a very charming film, and would have made Prince Charming a much better character as well. So
yeah, they kind of missed the mark with his character too. That you could have seen a little more growth outside of just the revenge.
I know.
Angle, and in the end, he just ended being a one-note villain of getting the revenge, the same thing he wanted in the first. It's like he could have had daddy issues himself if they wanted to play the daddy angle. There was
so much they could do.
Yeah, and it just seemed like it was not nearly as focused. And I have to agree, in regards to this film, while it's not bad, you can watch it. It's not a horrible watch by any means. For me, the third time was not a charm either. The change in tone was just odd. And while there were sections that I really enjoyed, the potential I saw for it really was there, but it seemed that they took the easier or, less creative way to go about some things in here that, had that charm for the first two films. So is it a horrible film? No. And are we getting another one? Yes. Apparently they are planning for a Shrek 5, which you're supposed to learn more about how Shrek came to be. And they're planning that for, well, it's in, development hell probably, but we're looking at probably 2019. Plus there's another Puss in Boots film, which I haven't seen the spin-off Puss in Boots, but it makes me wonder how that character would have handled being in a movie all by himself. I like Antonio Banderas, but I'm not sure if the shtick of the character would carry a full film. So I've got to watch that yet. But you knew there were still going to be sequels after this because opening weekend, for crying out loud, this film made $121 million for an animated film. So, there is, for a lot of people, there is a formula there, but tonight for this panel, folks, third time is not exactly a charm with Shrek the Third. Though again, the caveat, not a horrible film, just misses a number of marks. So we'll wrap it up here tonight. I appreciate Paul and Dawn coming in and talking about this film. We'll go down the line quick where they can find these lovely people at when they are not here. Go ahead, Dawn.
You can find me at intheaudience.net.
Fantastic. And Paul?
You can find me on the Astro Radio Z Network on a podcast called Film Jerks, as well as Forsaken Film Reviews.
Fantastic. And also you've got you're running a festival again this year, correct?
Yes, we are. Our second year. It's the Northeast Wisconsin Horror Film Festival, second weekend of October, and we're still collecting some submission films, and they're just, some of them are fantastic. I'm looking forward to the lineup that we're going to come up with this year. So
awesome. So check that out, folks. You can find all their stuff at specialmarkproductions.com, and on Facebook we've got a new group. We're consolidating a bit, so head on over to facebook.com/groups/smprd. That's the Special Mark Productions group, where you can even give your opinions and episodes here, things you'd like to see. The pages we have will eventually be going away because we want to do a little more interaction, which the group allows us to do. So check that new group out there. We are on the Twitters as well, Spoiler Room PDCS or Special Mark PRO, so Special Mark Pro for the Twitters. You'll find us there as well. So thank you so much for listening. Hope you enjoy this, and we look forward to bringing you the next Third Time's a Charm film, as well as check out the rest of our mature animated film month here on March. All kinds of great things going on, and you can keep it right here and tune in. So say good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.